This is gonna be a fun one. Everything here is really messy. Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfie and you're watching GreaterThanPie. A couple of weeks ago, we built my brother a new PC using only a few of his extra parts, and we cleaned those parts up before we moved them to the new PC. Unfortunately, the rest of the parts are laid out ahead of us, including some that I just needed to clean anyway, so I figured, why not do it all at once? Due to that, I realized that there are a lot of parts in a computer that people don't necessarily know how to clean. And today, I'm going to show you how to clean your PC. We're talking CPUs, CPU coolers, GPUs, motherboards, RAM, fans, radiators, cases. So it's going to be a bit of a fun one. And unfortunately, we've got a really good bad example on the table today. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Let's just say I haven't seen a case this bad in a while. Now, before we get into this type of cleaning, this is what's known as a deep clean. We're going to talk about preventative maintenance. You don't want to get here. If your PC looks like this, you have a problem. What you've effectively done is you've let a couple years of neglect build up on your computer. And at this point, it's going to actually start causing problems. When your fan blades are so caked in dust that they look like this is no longer going to be as efficient as a fan that is brand new. Furthermore, when your air cooler looks like this and is blacked out in dust, you can see how this is going to impede airflow. Radiators are another piece that can easily be blocked off by not having proper airflow. And filters can actually become more of a problem the worse they get. For the most part, you should be performing preventative maintenance every couple of months. Now, preventative maintenance is actually really simple. All you would have to do is remove your dust filters, if you have any, blow them out with some compressed air outside where it's nice and safe and you aren't going to trap a bunch of dust everywhere, and blow out any fans, radiators, and coolers simply by putting your finger on any rotating fan blades and blowing away. For the most part, as long as you're using a can of compressed air, or in my case, I actually have an electrostatic safe electric air duster, you are completely safe. The only thing you don't want to do is you don't want to blow on these fans so that they rotate, because that will actually generate electricity and it can backfeed into the cable. Now, it's not going to kill your PC most likely, but any steps you can take to prevent it would be preferable. Every couple months, you should be disassembling your PC at least to the point that you can get to the filters to do that kind of cleaning. And every year with a liquid-cooled PC, you really should be changing out the fluid, which means you should be taking apart things like the radiators, fans, and, well, even some of the water blocks in order to perform preventative maintenance. There is a film that can develop when you use custom cooler coolants that have dyes in them that you really just don't want to be there, and the easiest way to prevent that is to actually address it within a year. Leaving it to rot will cause much worse effects, and when it comes to liquid-cooled PCs, you actually lose the extra safety of using a coolant the longer you go without actually performing maintenance. EK's cryofuel is actually only rated to a year of use before actually becoming a problem. And Jay's 2 Cents actually did a wonderful video explaining how the coolant can actually become, well, not safe for a PC very quickly if you use it for too long. Also, tempered glass side panels can easily be cleaned with a little bit of Windex onto any normal cleaning method that you would for glass. So whether you use newspaper, or in my case, I tend to use fiber-free cloth paper towels, which are these blue variants that you've probably seen on Jay's 2 Cents and Gamers Nexus that are, well, they're great for cleaning PC parts. The overall case itself can also be cleaned in a very similar manner. The only thing you don't want to do is spray any liquid into the case itself. So spraying directly onto the rag and then cleaning the case itself is completely fine. You aren't going to want to clean the motherboard that way. You're going to want to dust it off with any condensed air. There are electric cleaners that you can use on your motherboard. They are called contact cleaners, but they are a niche situation that's even worse than what we're dealing with today. Today, this is just maintenance. This is not anything that would require Tech Yes City to bring out his all-purpose spray. But let's say you did not do that and you left everything to sit for 2-3 years. This is what you could expect. Fans with so much dust caked onto the back of them that their actual bleeding edge is just dust. Cat hair absolutely everywhere. An RGB LED fan that probably glows gray instead of white like it's supposed to. A cooler that's got a very clear indentation of where the fan actually blows through. A case that's got so many smudges and fingerprints and mysterious liquids on it that I am considering possibly running it with gloves. These are all things that can happen with old computer parts, and specifically a situation where it's not being cleaned properly. Fortunately for us, this is not too hard to fix. The first step is, of course, to completely disassemble the PC, which we've already done here because it is the most time-consuming step. Let's start with arguably one of the most important parts to actually clean, and those are going to be your fans, radiators, and coolers. This is the one part that will actually have the most performance hit if not cleaned properly, and are also the part that I recommend taking the most time on. I'm going to be using this. This is a DataVac. This is an actual electric, static, safe air duster. You don't need this though. To be honest, a can of compressed air should be good enough to at least get one PC clean. I run 3 PCs personally, plus one for my fiance, my brother, and his girlfriend also run a PC of my creation. So I kind of need something like this just so that, you know, I'm not constantly buying air, but you don't necessarily need it. So we're gonna actually put on a mask because, well, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of dust. Just realized one flaw in my plan of wearing a mask. I actually don't have any like N95 style mask anymore because I don't work retail anymore, so I don't need them. So I hope this works. Just some old school like fabric mask. Pinch your nose as much as possible, get it as tight as possible. We're really just blocking out the big particles anyway. All right, so much like I said before, put your finger on the fan hub itself, not on the blades. And that's gonna get most of the big stuff off. You're gonna have to come in and clean this afterward, which we'll do. So let's go ahead and do this to the rest of these fans. Now the clear difference, by the way, those fans right there, those NZXT ones, were inside that case without being adjusted for like 5 years. These EK Vardars are almost completely clean now, just by blowing them off. We are gonna do a little bit extra cleaning on them just because they did go over a year without getting a serious cleaning. But I did blow them off regularly, which prevented them from getting that really dark, gross film on them. And this one's actually mostly done. You can see that there's not really much dust on it anymore, but we are gonna wipe down the blades. Now, you could use isopropyl alcohol, but these blades are made of plastic. They're completely safe. You just need to use something that will dry quickly, and just remember to not spray the fan directly. I mean, it should go without saying, if it's got electronics, don't spray it directly. I do have a simple cleaner. This is just Windex with vinegar. It doesn't have any chemicals that will eat into the fan, and that's what we want. And we're gonna spray it directly onto our rag, away from anything that has electronics on it, because you don't want it to overspray. And we're just gonna wipe this whole thing down. So if you look at that, that would be a nice and clean RGB fan that is ready to use. Of course, let it dry, and there you go. That's how you clean a fan. Now that we got our fans done, next one is gonna be the radiator. This one is actually pretty easy. You just wanna blow on it from the opposite direction of where the dust is. So you don't wanna blow dust into the radiator, you wanna blow it from the clean side, which is where the air is actually coming out. Looks significantly better. And more importantly, it's nice and clean. So the most important thing about it is you don't want to try to shove as much air into this as possible. I mean, it will go straight through if it's a nice radiator like this one. This one's the EK Coolstream SE. So this is actually a high-end liquid cooling one. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to scrub on the front of this, because these little fins are pretty fragile. And then these are where actually the water goes through for heat transfer. Arguably the easiest thing to clean is a dust filter. Same thing, go from the opposite direction, blow right into it. Now this dust filter is particularly bad because there's something sticky on it that is actually holding some of this dust in place. So luckily, this is a part that holds nothing electrical in it. So we can actually wash this part, which we are going to do. For GPUs, most of the time, you're just going to need to blow on them the exact same way that you would with a fan. Put your finger on the center hub so that you don't generate centrifugal force in there. And just do your best to just nice and smoothly come in and blow out any heat sinks and fins. Now, if you're using an old GPU, you might need to take it apart and actually repaste the thermal paste. For our air coolers, there are two things that you really should do. First off is clean up this old thermal paste, and secondly, blow it out. So let's start with cleaning off the thermal paste, which uses a slightly different technique. Thermal paste is actually not that hard to dissolve in isopropyl alcohol. Just get something that's nice and high proof to like this. This is 91%. I personally prefer to do 99%, but due to the supply chain issues that existed and have persisted, 90% isopropyl has been really hard to come across. Put a little bit on a rag like that and just wipe away the thermal paste. This will dissolve the thermal paste really quickly and you'll be left with a mostly clean surface. Much like before, we're gonna try to go opposite direction of our fins first to blow any of the big chunks out. Now, for the most part, we are going to need to actually scrub this one as well. Luckily, again, this is not a part that carries electricity, so we can actually clean it up pretty nicely. Now, this is a tough air cooler. This is by Deepcool. And it's got some thick fins. It doesn't actually have that many micro fins. So this radiator right here, we don't have to be super gentle with. Most important thing, do not put the paper towels in front of there. Do not wipe against the fins. You want to wipe with the fins. Again, and I'm going to reiterate this repeatedly. Anything you clean like this, leave it to dry, preferably overnight. If you can, if not, just a couple hours. And you shouldn't have to go this extreme. This is only if you're in a situation where you've let it sit for too long. So simply going with the fins, you can already see, look at that. That looks immediately better. We're also gonna do this on the heat pipes as well, and along this bottom radiator piece right here. There you go. Cooler, nice and clean. Deepcool, I will give you credit for that. Your coolers are pretty robust. So, and also because of how you've actually, it looks like you dealt the sides. It's not easy to cut yourself on this. It's good. Good job, Deepcool. RAM should be one of the simplest parts to clean in any system. Even if it has a heat sink, most of the time they have really, really large fins. So just blowing a little bit of compressed air over them is all you really need to do. Now on to the expensive parts. The motherboard and the processor. Well, the GPU is also probably arguably more expensive. So this one's pretty simple as well. For the most part, just like before, we're going to use isopropyl alcohol to wipe the thermal paste off of the CPU. And that's pretty much all the cleaning your CPU is ever going to need if it's been in its socket the entire time. This is one of the reasons why you use isopropyl alcohol instead of water or cleaner, is isopropyl alcohol dries extremely quickly and is pretty safe to be come in contact with the motherboard. So now that that's cleaned, we're just gonna give this a good dusting. This motherboard is actually really fascinating. I didn't really take a good look at it when we used it the first time, which was a long, long time ago, but it's got like killer Ethernet. It's got multiple heat sinks. This is back when there were South bridges still. And so with a South bridge, this whole thing had cooling for this chipset, and this chipset, which is nuts. These are the VRMs right here. And there's a chipset over here and a chipset right over here. Yeah, super interesting. This one actually had a remote start along with power and reset also on the motherboard. So really good testing motherboard back for AM3 Plus. Yeah, this is an old boy, an old oldie. So far this mask is working, by the way. You know, normally I'm like, yeah, confidence, but no, I was not sure that this cloth mask was gonna work. Hold down your motherboard so it doesn't go flying. Now, for the most part, this is actually ready to get put back together, except for the case, really. But this motherboard isn't going to need too much more cleaning. We can do a little bit on the heat sinks, but you're not going to want to try to spray any cleaner directly onto this unless you're using a electronic safe cleaner. Fortunately, this motherboard looks like it's in really good shape. I'm taking a look at all the ports, just seeing if there's anything stuck inside them. It all looks really good. There's still a little bit of extra dust that we can kind of maybe polish off with a duster, but we want to limit how much we're going to do to the motherboard because the motherboard is the one part that is super sensitive. All right, now we don't have a power supply today to clean, but cleaning a power supply is very similar to what we've already done so far. You would take something like, for this one part, make sure whatever you're using is electric safe, whether that be compressed air or a DataVac. Blow into the back of the power supply, not straight down into it. And most of the time, they're not gonna be that bad. They are usually in one of the most protected chambers of a case. They will have a dust filter on their intake, so just note that the power supply, do not, under any circumstances, spray it with any type of anything unless it's electrical safe, and more importantly, do not disassemble your power supply ever. Like, just don't do it. It's not worth it. The case is easiest to do if you take it apart first. You know, our side panels are completely separated, our front panels, any hard drive cages. Cleaning a drive is much like cleaning anything else. Just be careful with it. So cleaning the panel, we can do it two ways. Literally, we can spray it because it's not attached to the PC. There's no electronics. There's nothing that can actually get affected. And just kind of scrub it all down. Now, if this were attached to your computer still, wet your rag first and then just wipe it down. You want to avoid using anything abrasive on the back of your PC because you don't want to scratch this surface. Now we have this one. Now this is an acrylic window, so we want to be a little bit more careful with this. These are fine. You use a normal paper towel. Those might be too abrasive for it, so acrylic is fragile. Unlike glass, which is harder to scratch, acrylic will scratch at just about any opportunity it can, so try not to scrub too hard on the acrylic panel. Now, if you do have glass, you can literally rub as hard as you want. Just don't try to punch through the glass and you'll be fine. Just gonna be gentle as we wipe away any of the big stuff on this panel. So he already cracked the panel, it looks like. And there's something like right there. All right, our top and front panel in this case are pretty much the same thing. We do have a power button to contend with, but it's all mechanical pressure. None of it's electronic, so if you do have electronic, try not to spray directly into these areas. This case comes off nice and clean, so. If this were still connected to the case itself, do not spray directly. If you've got vents on the top, do not spray directly, of course. Just, if it comes off easily, I would take it off. If not, then just wiping it down with a rag that you've already poured some cleaner on, but don't spray directly into it. Now, this does have some electronics components on it, so we're not gonna wanna spray it directly, but looking at this motherboard, or this daughter board, it's a daughter board. Looking at this little daughter board here, I am a little concerned by the gunk that I see inside the USB ports. Now, this is the kind of thing that you have to be very careful when cleaning. We're gonna need isopropyl alcohol to do this because there's actually stuff inside the port, and we're not actually going to wanna use a paper towel. This is the kind of thing that we would have to use probably a brush of some kind. All right, now cleaning those trays. Nice and easy. Just gonna lay down some paper towel. Do them in a couple of batches, spray them down, wipe them down. We're just gonna wanna carefully wipe down any of the surfaces that still have some gunk on them. avoiding PCBs at all costs, and try not to spray directly into any cables or connectors. So mostly this back panel is going to stay untouched where we clean up the chambers themselves. Case itself is mostly cosmetic, so we've already cleaned off the paper, the dust filters and everything like that that actually make a difference. So this is mostly just kind of like getting it nice and clean. Now, if we were to clean these, use isopropyl alcohol. You don't want to use anything that's going to short circuit these little boards. In this case, they do come off, and that is how you deep clean a computer. Unfortunately, when cleaning a computer that's been left to sit this long, you are likely to have some damage that just cannot be repaired no matter how much scrubbing you do. And there is an extent to how hard you want to scrub on a lot of these surfaces. You don't want to start taking up any of the coatings, any paint. You don't want to scratch acrylic, etc. So when it comes down to it though, this can be avoided simply by just doing preventative maintenance. All you need to do is clean out your dust filters, maybe dust out the main chamber once a year, and you will never get it to the point that you get it this far. If you do spill something on your case, clean it off immediately. Wipe down that surface, don't let it sit. You let things sit, you end up having to do this. And if you do this, you need to take your entire system apart and clean it piece by piece. Now, I'm gonna put this back together, and while I'm putting it back together, I'm gonna actually kind of talk about this case in general because this is a really interesting case. So if you wanna see that video, consider subscribing because we're gonna be doing it almost immediately right after this one. But that is where I'm gonna end today. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Wolfie.